I'm your professor, Dr. Schaff. The goals is to create this learning environment where you should feel free to do any creative stuff and innovate in any way. So the idea is to create some foundation to accomplish stuff that's not yet been done in HRI. We will cover some of what has been done, but then we'll look at some of the ways you can get to the parts which have not been done. So some of the ideas are like robotic cognition with humans, and human cognition, robot understanding that. The example I give as something that you might want to consider building, or as consider there's a robot, and you have a robot, a personal robot that's a healthcare provider, and it's taking care of, say, your grandmother. So what you want to do is the robot has to be able to understand intuitively what the person needs. It has to be at the point where it doesn't need verbal inputs, but it looks at the person and say, something's not right. Are you okay? Can I help with this? And then if it realizes certain things are beyond its scope, it's going to then go and say, all right, I'll dial emergency services and get help from there. In other words, it has to be aware of its own limitations. The other thing is that it needs to be reliable and trustworthy. And some of the trustworthy actually involves, and we'll get into this, a little cyber segment of things. And the reason is because if you just treat the robot as yet another machine that's programmable, somebody could actually put malware on it and hijack it and then turn the robot and hold your grandmother hostage for all the money she has in the bank or something like that. And that wouldn't be right. And if that's the case and those type of things occur, or even once, somebody is going to notice and go, whoa, we can't have these as caregivers in the house. Why do we waste our money on robots? Let's just put them back into factories and automated plants, and that's it, and just keep them out of the rest of it. So things like that, to consider. So how will it do that? It has to be able to assess a number of sensors and features, and that's what we're going to talk about. It's not just a visual. It's not just a memorized thing, but it has to understand what it's looking at. And there's a bunch of attributes, the person's stance, the way they walk, the gait, it's called, and other factors. And all those things are important to understanding what the robot, if the person is healthy or not. So from that perspective, we're going to look conceptually at how to build these machines. And ultimately, one of the things they may need to do is have their own social structure. And the reason is because we as humans have a thing called society. And we all bond to this society. If the robot doesn't understand that and at least have some sort of analogous structure internally, then it's going to be very challenging to create that final bond, especially if it's for, say, the caregiver robot, which is also a helper companion type of robot for somebody who's infirmed or is elderly or whatever it is. That sort of bond is needed so it understands the relevance of interacting with others and society. All those things are factors in there that they're not the simple matter of, okay, go over here, 3 meters this direction, pick up a round object and bring it back. It's more than just that. It has to understand why and what, or at least be able to partially answer those type of questions. I ended up designing this course back in 2016, and each year I update it, which is also the other thing. The syllabus will change a little bit. I try not to do too much, but it'll change because I will be bringing in new material. Currently, there's on the order of maybe 2,500 new papers a week in machine learning. I think that's about right. In a similar venue, cyber has the same amount. But because of that, there's two things. One is that I will add material as it comes up. If you happen to come across some really interesting new stuff too, please let me know. We can include it in the course. The second thing is this course is focused around a project at the end. If you can show what you've learned by creating a project, and you do something more advanced, that project can actually go to the next step where you might do a startup. And that's what I really like to see is get enough people that take the Shark Tank approach and go, yeah, let's do a startup. That's my objective in this. In the process, we can learn a lot of details or we can learn a moderate amount, but the idea is I'll cover as much as possible in the short period of time.